you all to close your eyes. Now, imagine a community. Let's call it Community A. Community A is surrounded by green spaces, like parks and recreational areas. It even has a cute little downtown with boutiques and restaurants. Now, imagine another community. Let's call this one Community B, except Community B is entrapped by bus depots, waste facilities, and factories. Now, open your eyes and think about this. Which community would you rather live in? Sadly, not everyone is given that choice. So I'm a psychology major here at UCA, and some things we talk about are systematic privilege and oppression and how they influence the way the individual experiences the world. But I'm not here to talk to you about psychology. I'm here to talk to you about environmental justice and how, unfortunately, environmental justice has become a commodity of privilege and environmental injustice has become a weapon of oppression. I'm going to walk you through what it is, where the movement began, and why it really matters. So, what is it? According to the Environmental Protection Agency, environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people regardless of race, color, national origin, or income with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. You got all that, right? I mean, what does that wordy definition really tell us? Well, I found that the best way for me to explain environmental justice is to first explain environmental injustice. So this is a graph I created based on a concept by Dr. Rishi Desai at Khan Academy. And as you can see, we have a high-income household and a low-income household. So the high-income household enjoys many environmental benefits and few environmental burdens, whereas the low-income household enjoys many environmental burdens and few environmental benefits. So an environmental benefit are those things from Community A, those green spaces, the parks, the hiking trails. And an environmental burden is those factories, anything that really pollutes your community. So we can rationalize that this is environmental justice, or injustice rather, that environmental justice is an equal balance between the two, regardless of not just income, but also national origin and race. So I'm going to focus on this low-income household for just a little bit. The low-income household is more often than not in what researchers refer to as sacrifice zones. So Artie Bullard, a dean at Texas Southern University, has stated that people who live in sacrifice zones have a higher vulnerability to certain environmental illnesses such as asthma and even carcinogens leading to cancer. So people living in these sacrifice zones are experiencing extreme inequality. And like most inequalities, a movement has begun in order to eradicate it from our society. The National Resource Defense Council pinpoints a specific event that influenced the start of this movement. Warren County, South Carolina, 1982. A company wanted to fill a landfill with their PCB-ridden waste in this county. The people marched the streets to protest. They even laid in the roads to block the dump trucks because they knew that the waste in those trucks could seep into their groundwater. This was actually the first time in history that anyone was ever arrested over the sitting of a landfill. I thought that was pretty interesting. But why does it matter? How does that community in Warren County all too long ago have anything to do with us now? And moreover, if you don't live in a sacrifice zone, why should you even care? Environmental justice should matter to you because it directly affects our health care. Remember how I said that people who live in sacrifice zones have a higher propensity to certain environmental illnesses? increases our healthcare costs. People are getting needlessly sick due to environmental injustice. People like the families in Flint, Michigan, who were exposed to dangerous levels of lead in their drinking water because they live in a sacrifice zone. This problem directly affects you, and it all boils down to two broad concepts. People are not disposable. People are wonderful, funny, and strong. Communities are not disposable. Communities are radiant, resilient, and unified. So now you know about environmental justice and injustice and how it impacts not just singular communities like Warren County and Flint, Michigan, but our entire nation. Now, think back to that first community I asked you to imagine. Community A with the parks and rec areas. That's a community living with environmental justice. A community everyone deserves that shares equality.